All right. So, Nina, I'm super excited to be able to do what we're doing together as a brother and sister team. This is the
Yes.
first time like being here. So, today we're just talking today, and we're talking about something that is near and dear to a lot of people. But there are a lot of people just like you and I who are living in today's world, and we see where the economy is headed. We see I mean, you go to the grocery store, you see the price of milk and eggs and gas
Oh my God.
just going up, and everything is just crazy. So
Yes.
today, something that we wanted to focus on is, we both have we were raised by hardworking moms, and we're brother sister team. We're brother-in-law, sister-in-law, but we're just like brother sister. We're
Oh, you
um,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. So we do, and but yeah. So
Yeah.
us being able to, do side income wealth together, today we just want to come and just talk because there's some questions that people have that people are wondering about us, like how do we get started, what are we doing, and those type of things. So
Okay.
um, I'm gonna just ask you a few questions, but wanted to talk about just what it was like for us. What did money look like in our households growing up? Like what did we see, and how did that shape how we operate today? So like what would you say, big sis, as far as like for you?
How much? Well, money back in my day, it looked like, I don't know if you remember a show, but it was called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. So
Oh yeah.
back then and there was a guy, Robin Leach, and they didn't have TikTok and Instagram. And so they would take cameras into people's homes and you would see how they lived. Now that's what I considered wealth. But we were middle class. Well, our dad worked for AT&T. So, we didn't really want for much, but we still had budgets. Sometimes I had to forfeit having new school clothes, if you will, because it wasn't in the budget. Um, we were able to take vacations, but some of those included not Disney World or anything, but just going to a place called Yuma, Arizona, and staying at a hotel and swimming in the pool. Um, we had extras such as HBO, a VCR was back in the day. Um, I mean, I thought we had it going on, but within the family, it being so many of us, just food prices were not so high, but still, mom would have to budget meals like beef stroganoff or spaghetti. She would bake homemade goods versus buying them. Make even help us with making outfits and different things just to keep um, the cost low. Um, Ate chili. I mean, we really weren't silver spoon, but it wasn't like we felt like we were in the poorhouse either. But money to me physically was lifestyle, the rich and famous. But I feel that, we grew up not really wanting much, but we still had to have a budget. Um, and we still also got to do other things like my mom and dad had a timeshare in the Ozarks. We were able to do that. So I never felt like we didn't have money. I knew we weren't at the other status, but I'll just say we didn't want for much. What we had, we were content with. But money to me was always what like I said, the lifestyles of rich and famous. That was wealthy.
Yeah. I
Yes.
love that you said so many amazing things. I love how your mom was so resourceful. Like, and I know her now, and I know that she is the queen of a sun dish, something out of nothing. And so now I see the backstory with that. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
plenty of those.
yeah.
They,
Yeah, that's awesome, and I love that. And for me growing up, when you started talking about about the school clothes and different things like that, it was
yeah,
really funny because when you grow up where I grew up, a lot of people they wore clothes and bought expensive things as though they had the money for them, but they really didn't.
right.
And so my mom was I'm just super grateful. My mom was smart enough to know that that if I just had clean clothes and clean shoes, and that I wasn't caught up in the hype of, spending $200 on a pair of Jordans that I couldn't afford. She was wise enough to know that that wasn't a good idea, and I think that made a difference for me. But I remember growing up, and I remember getting teased because I wore some shoes from Payless, and they were called Pro Wing 2000s.
I remember the Payless, yes.
Yeah. And so
Pro-
I remember going to school and just almost cringing, like, but you know what? It helped me develop a strength where I kind of just didn't even care anymore after that. But I remember one day my dad bought me a pair of Reeboks from an outlet store, and they were the most horrible looking shoes I'd ever seen. They were like pink and purple, like they were white, but they had like this pink or purple pump. And
yes,
yeah, that's what I wore to school. And there was a kid that always wore the best shoes, and for whatever reason he stopped me, and he just looked around my shoes like it was some luxury car, and he just like kept walking around them, and he was like, man, I like those shoes. And I just felt like somebody, like, and I experienced that for one single brief moment, and I was like, wow. Like, even as a child, I was like, that's why a lot of these kids are wearing the shoes that they're wearing. That's why they're willing to go into debt and to spend all this money, is for that same feeling of identity. I feel like somebody or something. And I do think that, unfortunately, that need for validation sometimes can creep into people's spending habits, their money habits, of why they will go in debt or be broke. And it's not healthy. But I'm glad that my mom, just like your parents, I'm glad that she raised us to understand the value of hard work and earning money and different things like that. And so I love the stories. I love that. And I just want to ask you too, like, what were the biggest kind of financial fears that we talk about, like, that maybe you saw your parents face, growing up?
Well, so my dad really loved my mom. So he would want her not to want for anything. So he would like take her on extravagant shopping sprees and make sure she had about 20 pair of shoes. And I remember one point she wanted a second house. So he even attempted to buy a second house. And as I said earlier, the vacation home. So it was at one point where he just overextended because he loved mom so much that he wanted to not ever tell her no. So it was at that point where he stretched a little bit too far. And so that's when it kind of hit us. And that's when we really had to buckle down. And then we had to eat corned beef hash, black eyed peas, liver and onions. I mean, it was still good, but I was like, something's different, and then we had to sell a car and just have one car. So I think just living in California and trying to keep up with the Joneses coming in from St. Louis, he kind of felt that pressure too. And so he stretched out that dollar, same income, but adding to it. And that's what caused a kind of setback for us.
Yeah, I can see that, and I see that a lot even now happening with friends, with some family members. I've seen the same thing, and I know that's and I can just imagine, like, he had a heart for, it's like, hey, I love this woman. I want to provide the world for her, and he meant that when he said that out. When he proposed and got married, he meant what he was saying. Like, I want to provide the moon, the stars, the ocean, and everything in between for you. So yeah,
Yes.
I get that. And it is so true how, like, what you're saying is it just shows how, like, one moment, things can be going good financially and everything is kind of like good on top, and then you just kind of experience this kind of shift, and maybe it's just one decision, maybe it's one thing, or maybe it's a slow, subtle shift in that direction. But either way, it can, and it shows the power of, which is why I love what we're doing with Side Income Wealth, is that those who we have a community, we're part of a community that's over 40,000 people who are earning thousands of dollars, like with their own digital business that they didn't have to create a single product or anything like that. And so you
Yeah.
think about like even with just like even just making what seems like a small decision to make an investment to start a business, like what you're talking about, like that could be, we make a small decision that goes in a direction that leaves us where we're kind of going from day to day, or we can make a small slight shift in decision that causes us to build and to grow. um,
Right.
and so I think that's really important. And for me, growing up, as far as financial fears, I think um, I remember seeing my mom pray for miracles. I remember, times where it was, hey, it's my birthday, and Doc wants a Sega Genesis, but mom can't afford it. And
Yeah.
Doc isn't he's not one of these spoiled brats that even asks for stuff much, but he just every now and then he kind of really has a desire for something like that,
Or
that just as a kid that would break his mom's heart to see him not be able to have that, and that's how parents are, even, just
yes.
like you talked about, like your dad and your mom, like parents carry that thing too sometimes, and sometimes it can turn into guilt when they feel like they can't provide that. So I think for my mom, like a lot of parents even today, is that the fear was not being able to be able to provide those things that their child may want, or some of those extra things. And I
Right.
think that was it. But I saw a lot of faith as well, so that was a good thing. But there was a lot of struggle in there, and that definitely shaped kind of my early beliefs as far as money and those type of things. Um,
Yes.
and so for us, like, I do want to talk about why we're so passionate about what we do, and seeing others that are stuck in this same cycle that we might have seen growing up. Like, what have you seen, like, with your friends, or maybe people that you've coworkers or people that you've known of, who either were not in the best situation, or maybe they started in a good situation. Like, how do they end up where they are?
Well, a lot of married people that I know, they're no longer married due to financial pressures, buying a home that they couldn't afford, or a car that they couldn't, getting repossessed, foreclosed on, um, or overspending just for college education for some of the kids, and they're having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to pay for their own expenses and their child's. Um, I've seen where some people, they live beyond their means. Just like there's women who will have $1,000 purse and have what, $20 in the $1,000 purse, because they want to look like, they're sporting something, but yet they have no money in the bank, or not even in the wallet that they're carrying. So I think just the pressures of trying to keep up with the Joneses, the Joneses are struggling too. They might just have more credit than somebody. But yes, unfortunately, yes, I have found or saw, some people divorce or lose everything, or even start drinking because they were lost from, their financial downfall, and they sought, some type of quote unquote escape. So I've even seen that, happen over the years. So I just think as a society, everybody needs to just live within their means, or like our business, create additional income for such things.
Yeah, you touched up on so many good points, and it's unfortunate how that happens. I've seen some of those same things, and I just want to talk about what happened to me, which is kind of similar. So I was a young Marine. I was what, maybe 18 years old. I'm looking for a car, and I was smart enough to take an adult with me, even though I was 18 years old. I
That
wasn't
was,
really an adult. Like, I was, I was
yeah.
smart to take somebody with me, and um, so I leave this dealership with a vehicle that's a $15,000 car, nice little sports car, and I go to work and my sergeant's like, "Hey, I see you got a new car out there." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm excited." He's like, oh, "Okay, how much you pay for it?" $15,000. He was like, oh, "Okay." He didn't think it was too bad. And he was like,
Right.
"What's your interest rate?" When he asked me what my interest rate was, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, 23%. And he was like, he said, no, this was like over 20 years ago. Okay. This isn't even like 2000s, like 2020, and so he said, "I can't make you take that car back, but you're gonna take the car back."
Oh, wow. He
So
told
he
wow.
he was like, "I can't make you take the car back, but you're taking the car back."
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so I had somebody who looked out for me, and I ended up going back to the dealership. And of course, the guy was unhappy. He was like, "Oh, you're an adult. Why do you gotta have other? You're a grown man. Why do you have other adults tell you what to do?" But I'm
Mm.
grateful that I had somebody in my life who was looking out for me, who said, "Hey,
Yeah,
you're about to make a bad financial decision."
yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, they made decisions why they're in this cycle. Maybe they
Mm.
made a decision when they were 20 years old or 30 years old, and
Right.
that decision caused them to spend the next 10, 20, 30 years trying to recover from that.
Yes,
And
yes.
I've made my fair share of decisions, as well. But one thing that I'm grateful for that I've seen is that when an opportunity presents itself for me to get out of that thing, I'm doing it. Like if
That
I'm
was my
yeah,
yes.
if I'm sinking and I know that things aren't going up, they're only either going to stay where they are, and I'm not really satisfied with where they are, or they're just going to sink. I'm not
Mm.
going to stay in that condition. And I think that what happens for a lot of people is they accept this cycle of, well, I'm just broke, I'll just do this and that. But what we're offering people with side income wealth is to be a part of an income revival. I think that we
Yeah.
can start
Oh, I
this
like
off. Yeah,
yes.
income
I
revival,
yeah.
because most people I know, their income needs to be revived because it's dead. It's not
Yeah.
serving them. They're not
Yeah.
getting out of it
Like
what they need. And so with having an opportunity to where they can start their own online profitable digital business in 30 days without having to create a single product. They don't have to try to figure out what things to put on their website or to create emails to send out. It's all in a box, packaged up for you. It's ready. It's a plug and play system where you just show up every day, you
yeah.
learn, you do what you got to do, you follow the roadmap, follow the blueprint, follow the system, and
Mhm.
eventually you're going to get there. Now some get there a lot sooner than others in this community. Community of over 40,000 people. And if I'm not mistaken, it might even be like over 50,000 now. But in this community, you're going to see like daily, there's a section called wins. And daily there are people, "Hey, I've just been at it for 30 days, just been at it for 60 days, I made X amount of thousands of dollars." And you're looking at that and you're like, is that possible? Well, yes, it's possible because people are doing it every single day. Now there are
Yes.
some people who, if you're like me, when I was in high school, yeah, I made A's and B's, but I had to work really hard to do that. Like I wasn't
Right.
the
They
guy,
weren't
you know,
yeah.
I wasn't the guy who just showed up and just like didn't pay attention and I absorbed everything and I showed up and made straight A's. Like, some of us do have to just grind it out a little bit more, but we were
That
bred like that. Life kind of bred us like that. But it's like,
yes.
I would rather know that I'm investing into something that's proven that can build over time versus showing up to a 9 to 5. And I have no hardship or hard feelings toward a 9 to 5 or anything like that. And I know it's necessary, and I appreciate it. I've had 9 to 5s. I get that. But what I'm saying is that if you want to keep your 9 to 5, keep it. Keep the 9 to 5 because you had that. You feel like you got the security there. But
Mhm.
sometimes security isn't staying on a ship that can sink at any time. because
Right.
you could lose that job at any time. Something could happen. You could get fired. You could get laid off. The company could go out of business. All these things can happen. And so when you're building your own business, the skills that you get, you can take those skills and build multiple businesses, build multiple streams of income, but you got to start somewhere. And that's where side income wealth comes in at. So big sis, I'm glad that we're able to do this together. And we just kind of, this wasn't even really planned. It wasn't like we just sat there and we're like, oh, we're gonna in 2 weeks we're gonna do
Yes.
this whole thing. We were just talking earlier. We are having our meeting like we do, and
Yeah.
we were just like, hey, let's hop on, let's
Let the
do a
world.
meeting, let's chat, let's talk. So
Not
I think,
selfish. Let others know about this, right?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's not
Yes.
something that you save to yourself. So
Right.
I want to encourage that if those who are listening to this, like if you're listening to what we're talking about and you're like, what are they talking about? We're talking about a digital business, a blueprint. I want you to go to sideincomewealth.com, and we're Dak and Nina, your brother sister team, and we're helping the world. We're helping those who feel overworked and undervalued to build profitable online businesses without burnout. Okay.
Yeah.
So go to sideincomewealth.com and get your 10K blueprint to learn how you can start and build your own digital business in 30 days. All right.
All right. Great talking to you, brother.
You too.